Oh yeah, this is the third model of the year released in Motorola's Edge 40 series, the Edge 40 Neo overall. It aims to deliver a similar experience to the vanilla Edge 40, but at a lower price. I'm Will for Tech Opium, and let's see what the Motorola Edge 40 Neo is all about in our full review. Motorola's Edge 40 Neo is the budget option of the Edge 40 series, but it still provides many of the same features of its more expensive siblings. You get basically the same cameras as the regular Edge 40, as well as the same charging and a 144Hz OLED display. This year's Neo model isn't as light as the previous Edge 30 Neo and actually weighs about the same as the regular Edge 40. Still, the phone is pretty light and easy to wield. Both the back and front curve into a thin plastic frame. The colorways are made in collaboration with Pantone. This one is called Soothing Sea and has a vegan leather backing, which is nice and grippy. There's also a color option with an acrylic back if you're not into faux leather. Just like the other models in the Edge 40 family, the Edge 40 Neo has IP68 rated protection against dust and water. Like I mentioned, the 6.55-inch OLED on the Edge 40 Neo has a fast 144Hz refresh rate and comes with a 1080p resolution. Since the screen is curved at the edges, it gives you a bit of a different experience than a flat screen, which some people may or may not prefer. You get support for HDR 10+ video here, and the color accuracy can be decent depending on your color settings. This display is also plenty bright, on par with the higher tier Motorola's. We measured a maximum of around 520 mids with the manual slider, and a boost in auto mode brought it up to over 1,000 nits. When it comes to refresh rate, you'll get the extra fast 144Hz only if you lock it in settings. If you want an adaptive refresh rate that can dial down to save energy, the auto mode will max out at 120 and switch to 60 when idling for audio. The Edge 40 Neo has a stereo speaker setup with Dolby Atmos support. The speakers have very good loudness and balanced output, but there could stand to be a bit more bass. To wake up and unlock the phone, there's an under-display fingerprint reader. It's responsive, but it would be more comfy to use if its placement was higher, and the Edge 40 Neo comes with 128 or 256 gigs of storage, and that's not expandable through microSD. Just like the rest of the Edge 40 bunch, the Neo runs a nearly stock-looking version of Android 13 with some extra Motorola features and functionality sprinkled on top. These features can be found organized within the Moto app. They include things like customization options, gestures, the peak display, and the game time utility. There's also support for Moto's Ready for, which connects the phone to a TV or monitor. This gets you a bigger screen, and you can even get a desktop-like experience. And the Edge 40 Neo also gets the same software support as the regular Edge 40. 2 OS upgrades and 3 years of security updates. That's decent, but a year less of support than what you'd get on the Edge 40 Pro. At the heart of the phone is a new chipset from MediaTek, a Dimensity 7030. It's mid-tier silicon with support for 5G connectivity. The Edge 40 Neo puts out solid mid-range numbers and benchmarks, performing similarly to phones running chips like a Domesticity 1080. It's on par with the Galaxy A34 and even gives the Galaxy A54 a run for its money in graphics tests. Sustained performance is also rather good on the Edge 40 Neo, with not much throttling to speak of during our prolonged stress test. And now we get to the battery life, which is a weak point for the Edge 40 Neo. Despite it having a large 5,000 mAh power battery, the phone didn't do a great job in screen-on tests and earned an overall endurance rating of 80 hours, far behind other mid-range competitors. Charging speed is no disappointment, though. With the included 68-watt adapter, it's quite speedy. We were able to charge the phone from 0 to 82% in half an hour. And a full charge took 51 minutes, but there's no wireless charging support here, unlike the Edge 40 or even last year's Neo model. Now onto the cameras. The Edge 40 Neo has a 50-megapixel main cam and a 13-megapixel ultra-wide, which has autofocus. That's almost the same as on the regular Edge 40, except that here the main cam has an f1.8 aperture lens rather than f1.4. The main cam bends pixels 4:1 to produce 12.5 megapixel images. They have plenty of detail. The dynamic range is wide, though the photos have a contrasty look that makes shadows come out a bit dark. Our main gripe is the muted colors. We would have preferred a more expressive rendition. You can choose between 3 different zoom levels when shooting portraits with the main cam. Subject detection is excellent all around, though. As expected, the digitally zoomed portraits have less detail in low light conditions. The Edge 40 Neo can apply its night vision processing automatically. These shots are very good. The dynamic range is excellent with well-developed shadows and preserved highlights. The colors look good and there's plenty of detail. There is some visible noise though. If you disable the night mode entirely, you'll get photos with a little bit of extra detail. But the dynamic range is more limited, especially in the shadows. The Edge 40 Neo supports 4K video recording with all of its cameras. The main cam's videos have excellent detail and well-controlled noise. They're a bit gloomy and underexposed, though with dark shadows. Electronic stabilization is available in all modes on all cameras. It smooths things out, but there is occasional focus hunting low-light videos. The Edge 40 Neo's main camera have good sharpness and detail, and noise is handled well. Dynamic range is just alright. Light sources tend to be blown out now. Let's have a look at the ultra-wide. It produces photos with a similar overall look to the main cam with good detail and plenty of contrast. The photos are slightly more colorful, though since the ultra-wide has autofocus, you can use it to shoot close-up subjects. And if you enter the dedicated macro mode, there's even a digital zoom added on top of that. These photos look pretty decent for a smartphone macro in low light. You again get automatic night vision kicking in. On the ultra-wide, there is very good dynamic range besides some darker shadows and a good amount of detail. Just like we observed in stills, the ultra-wide maintains are rather consistent. And that means that the ultra-wide clips are also dark and lacking in saturation detail, on the other hand, is very good. The Edge 40 Neo has a 32-megapixel selfie cam, which produces 8-megapixel photos. By default, these have an excellent amount of detail, natural-looking skin tones, and wide dynamic range. So there you have it, guys. The Motorola Edge 40 Neo, in many ways, it provides a lot of value for money punching above its weight class and delivering features you'd expect from the more expensive Edge models. However, it isn't perfect. There are a few nitpicks here and there, and the biggest downside is the mediocre battery life, if that's something you can live with, which is possible. Thanks to the very fast charging then, the Edge 40 Neo has a lot to offer and it's worth recommending. Thanks for watching, guys, if you're looking for alternatives. The Edge 40 Neo one option could be Samsung's Galaxy A54, or you can check out the Xiaomi Redmi Note 12 Pro. Let us know what you think and I'll see you on the next one.